Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Again, to remind you that my Twitter handle is Brian J. Fisher, and you can go to our Focal Point Facebook page. I post a lot of the same information both on my Twitter feed. I'll send out a tweet, and then I will just kind of copy and paste that information into a post on the Facebook page. So you get two ways to kind of get at the information that I send out. As I'm doing my show prep, as I'm researching and reading and getting ready for the day, you can get kind of a jump start on what we're going to talk about. And I put a lot more information out in the form of tweets and on Facebook than I have time to cover in the program. So it's a way for you to even get more information than we can give in the 2 hours that we have together. Anyway, Free for All Friday, we'll talk about anything that you want to talk about, because that's what I'm doing, talking about anything that I want to talk about. 888-589-8840 is the number, 888-589-8840. I want to give you some quick information about the job numbers to give you the straight scoop. By the way, the blue states, the ones that voted for Obama, they're the ones that have the heaviest tax burden, the heaviest tax burden. I mean, they're doing this to themselves. California is going to be paying taxes at a rate of 51.9%. New York City is over 50%, and Hawaii is over 50%. Here's a story about your tax dollars at work. You know, the Department of Defense, they're screaming about this sequester. It's going to eviscerate the military. It's going to gut the military. We're going to shrink to the size we were in 1915. Well, part of the problem is they're out there spending $100,000 on a session that had this title, Did Jesus Die for Klingons Too? So they're spending $100,000 having a session, that's our taxpayer dollars, Department of Defense, talking about Jesus and the mythical Klingons. Now, this is another reason to be encouraged, by the way, about the election. President Obama won the White House, but the Republicans won the House of Representatives. I mean, decisively. They have 233 seats, and the Democrats have 197. That's a 36-seat majority in the House of Representatives. And so it's worth remembering. I mean, everybody's talking, I've got an Ann Coulter bite. Well, Barack Obama, we lost the election. Well, we didn't. We lost the White House, but we control the House of Representatives. And President Obama cannot spend $1 if it's not first appropriated by the House of Representatives. House of Representatives, in the control of the Republicans, they can stop every single solitary thing that Obama wants to do. They can stop him from spending a single solitary dime. And you look at Michigan, for instance, and there's I think 25 or 27 states now that are solely in control of the Republican Party. The governor's Republican, and both the House and the Senate in those states is also Republican. So you have one-party rule in 27 states, and 30 of the 50 governors are Republicans. So let's not forget that when you get down to a state and local level, overwhelmingly, the American people voted for Republicans to be in power and establishing policy. I think there's 13 states that are one-party Democrat rule, whether it's a Democrat governor and Democrat houses in the state legislature. So the Republicans have them doubled up, which means the American people at a local and state level voted for conservative political leaders, and that's paying off in Michigan. We got Republicans. You think of Michigan as a pretty liberal place, and Obama won there pretty handily, but they've got large majorities, the Republicans do, in both the House and the Senate, and the governor is a Republican. And they're going to pass right-to-work legislation in Michigan. They are going to break the power of the unions in the state of Michigan. That's going to be good for jobs. It's going to be good for the economy. So it's good to keep that stuff in mind when we think about the election results. Now, Nancy Pelosi's out there again talking about how unemployment benefits are such an important stimuli for the economy. I mean, this is economic ignorance, stupendous economic ignorance, that anybody in America that's entrusted with political power would think that you can stimulate the economy, that you can raise the level of the pool by taking water out of one end of the pool and then dumping it in the other end of the pool, and that somehow you have raised the level of the pool. That's what Nancy Pelosi wants us to believe. Unemployment benefits, they first of all have to be taken out of the productive part of the economy. And then we put them in a saucepan, and we run down the deck of the swimming pool, and meanwhile water is sloshing out of our saucepan, so we're losing stuff as we go. We get down to the shallow end of the pool, and we dump what's left in the shallow end of the pool, and we congratulate ourselves for how we have raised the level of the water in the pool. It is absolutely just that absurd. And Nancy Pelosi says this: unemployment insurance benefits act as a, quote, safety net for our whole economy, adding that they simultaneously constitute, quote, probably the most important stimulus for the economy. Well, if that is true, if that's true, then we all ought to just go out and quit our jobs. Understand what I'm saying? This is what Nancy Pelosi, this is how absurd what she's saying is. If the way to stimulate the economy is to get people on unemployment benefits, let's have everybody go out and quit their jobs. I mean, you talk about a jolt to the economy. Let's put everybody on unemployment. If unemployment benefits are the most important stimulus, then let's put everybody in the entire United States of America on unemployment. Let me grab a couple of phone calls, and then we'll get to the sound bites and some more content. Let's go to Charles in Princeton, West Virginia. Charles, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Merry Christmas, Brian.
Merry Christmas to you, sir.
I'm not going to get you fired up, I promise. This is a laid-back day, so I just want to make a comment about something you were talking about earlier this week, and that was gun control. And one of the statements you made was, back in the early days, it was against the law not to carry your firearm into the house of worship.
Right.
And I just happened that next night, I have this collection of old cinema classics, and I was watching a movie called The Scarlet Letter, made in 1934, about the Pilgrims and that sort of thing. And they had a big scene in their house of worship, and stacked in the middle of the aisles were all the guys' muskets.
Well, and that would be historically accurate.
I don't think you could see that today.
They wouldn't do that today, would they? Especially not in the house of God.
One other point. What happened to Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin deal? I haven't heard anything.
Well, that thing is still perking along. In fact, what George Zimmerman has done is he has sued NBC. Remember, we played the sound bites. NBC chopped up his 9/11 call to make it look like he was a racist, and he's suing them for defamation. He's saying, look, you misrepresented me. You made me out to be a racist. You made me look bad. You tarnished my reputation without warrant. And so he is suing NBC.
Is he still in jail?
No, he's waiting trial, but I don't think he's behind bars right now.
Okay.
But again, you could be right. I'm not up to speed on that.
I'm not up either.
But I hope he takes NBC to the absolute cleaners on that, because that was just absolutely reprehensible what they did to that man's reputation.
Well, Brian, you have a Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a Merry Christmas yourself. Appreciate that, Charles. Thank you. And by the way, Bob Costas went on this rant about how terrible guns are, and nobody ought to have guns. We ought to ban guns. The problem is guns, not the shooters. Turns out that 3 out of every 4 NFL players owns a gun. So apparently they're not paying any attention to Bob Costas, who's just like a short guy. They could toss him through the window of their car with one hand. So apparently they're not too concerned about what Bob Costas thinks about the fact that they own guns. And Detroit apparently is getting ready to file for bankruptcy. I mean, Detroit is history. They're going in the tank. They're going down. They're broke. They're completely out of money. They got no way to stay alive. So Detroit will no longer exist as a city. I mean, there'll be a Detroit, and I assume it'll have city limits, but there won't be a city government. There won't be a city hall. It's all going to be absorbed by the county. And this is just the first of many. This is Democrat governance on steroids. Democrats have been running Detroit now for 4 decades. This is what you get. You got San Bernardino in California going belly up. You have Vallejo went belly up. The whole state of California is going belly up. Illinois is going to go belly up. The state of New York, they're just the first of a whole series of dominoes that are going to declare bankruptcy, because that's spend. And the difference between states and the federal government is states cannot print money. They can't print their money. They can't print their way out of debt. Well, the federal government can't do it, but they can print money in order to pay bills. It cheapens the value of everybody's money, but they can do it. States can't do it, so they're on the hook. Let's go to Tommy in Martin, Tennessee. Tommy, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Oh, good day, Brian.
Good day, sir.
My father was a World War II veteran, and he entered the Army in November of 1940. And he told me the reason why he done it was because he just figured that FDR would find a way to get us in that war. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's interesting his prophecy came true.
Mm-hmm.
Because we ended up in World War II, 13 months later.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, Tommy. There's been a lot of speculation about everything surrounding Pearl Harbor and us getting into the war. And, I probably might take a little bit of a different angle than your father takes, because it looks to me like FDR actually got pulled into that thing a little bit reluctantly. I mean, once Japan attacked us on December 7th, then you have to. You have no choice. They have declared war on you, and you have to declare war to defend yourself. And they were part of an Axis group, a cluster of Axis powers with Italy and Germany, so we had to take them all on. So it didn't look to me. In fact, England was, Churchill was begging the United States to get involved in the war effort earlier because they were standing alone. Right. So I think, I don't know, I might take a little bit of a different look at that. And my father, by the way, served in World War II also. He was a medic in World War II. He was a conscientious objector, so he didn't carry arms, but he put himself in harm's way to minister to those that were injured in the fighting.
Yeah, my father, he served under Patton, and he was responsible for Patton and his officers getting their meals.
Oh, really?
The way they ordered. He would stand in the hallway before the officers were, gathered together, and he, every PFC that came by with the meal, he had to lift up the cover and make sure it was where it was supposed to go to.
Huh. All right. Well, good for him. That's an honor, huh?
You remember the movie Patton, when they were sitting around and these French-looking waiters were serving them? That wasn't true. It was PFCs that were serving them. It was not. It was not no waiters.
Well, it's just kind of amazing to think that movies would actually take liberties with history. Who would have seen that coming? So, all right, Tommy, listen, I appreciate the call very much. That's very interesting. Thanks for calling. We'll take more of your phone calls when we come back after the break. 888-589-8840. And I am going to get to some of this information about the job numbers, but I want to revisit something with you. I'll come back and talk about this a little bit in the next segment. But it's actually a very simple thing to balance the budget. And we don't even have to cut spending to do it. And I'll explain why. Daniel Mitchell at the Cato Institute has explained how we can balance the budget in 10 years and grow the government spending 2.5% a year. Be right back. Focal Point AFR Talk.